Please pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. This is a great time to talk about anxiety. Anxiety is all around us at this time of the year and the semester, and we certainly cannot hide from the pressures that cause anxiety. Let's just start it close to home here. The end of the semester, I'm sure everyone recognizes, is only a little over a week, and we will have final exams, provides one source of stress for students, for faculty, and for others. Is there enough time to do a good job writing all those papers, to study for all of those exams, or to grade all those final projects? Well, at least Thanksgiving break is coming, but that provides its own set of stressors, perhaps travel in iffy weather, extended time with family and the possibility of strife, and the promise of the early Christmas season this year. So who's ready to do all that Christmas shopping, right? And the Christmas holiday seems to heighten problems among family, friends, roommates, and neighbors. The incidence of depression or alcohol or drug abuse, and the everyday tensions that we all endure. Satan loves this time of the year as it provides opportunities to sow seeds of doubt and despair in all of us. And then add to our list all of the issues that are confounding our world. We could highlight any number of problems in Egypt, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, in the Sudan, Chad, Nigeria, and Kenya, in the Philippines, Brazil, and Mexico, among many other places. And we haven't even gotten to the problems that face our own nation: a political stalemate and an economic slowdown, people out of work and those whose health is broken, the homeless and those caught in the vice of poverty or violence, among a host of many other problems. Our anxiety levels should be high enough to shut any normal person down. Anyone who doesn't experience anxiety at this time of the year might just not be normal. So what on earth does Paul mean in our reading today? Do not be anxious about anything. Doesn't he know anything about our world and the pressures we are under? How can we believe anything from someone who tells us not to worry? Well, if one reads Paul's epistle to the Philippians, it's clear that he recognized and acknowledged the anxieties that were stressing his church at Philippi. While he recognized some of the strengths of the church people at Philippi, especially their generosity in giving, he also noted the problems that stressed its people: false teachers within the congregation, tempting theologies in the surrounding culture, fellow believers fighting among themselves. All of those things in the midst of the everyday worries of that world, that society, that life, that were much more contingent and much more dangerous than ours. And yet, in a verse earlier than our text, Paul tells the Philippians to rejoice in the Lord always. Instead of remaining anxious, Paul encourages his readers at Philippi And he reminds us, 21st century Christians, to remember that God is in charge. Paul explains this in two related but different ways in our reading. First, Paul reminds us that God always acts on our behalf. Immediately before our text, Paul explains that God is at hand. What an intriguing phrase. God's right here. He's with us. He's not some far-off deity who wishes to see his people suffer and die an everlasting death. He is a God who cared for his people so much that he sent his Son to live among us and to die in our place. Because of Jesus' death and resurrection, we can be close to God. God draws us close to him with all the benefit that allows. And Paul highlights an amazing antidote to anxiety: prayer. In prayer, we remember God's grace with us with thanksgiving. We also have the privilege of bringing our cares and concerns, as well as the cares and concerns of others, to him, taking those cares off of our shoulders and laying them at his feet. Paul doesn't promise that our problems will go away. Instead, they're no longer a burden to us, and we can act on them. Second, Paul tells us the things that make us anxious are limited in both time and in effect. Paul is not suggesting that the problems of this world are not real or potentially dangerous. His is not an Eastern philosophy which suggests that bad things are only figments of our imaginations, and that if we think right thoughts, that our problems will all go away. Instead, he asks the believer to put these problems into perspective. He reminds us of the gift of God's peace that passes all understanding. Now, that's hard for academics like me to hear. I want to understand everything. I want to figure things out. They have to make sense. But Paul reminds us that in faith, not everything makes sense. There is a level of faith that we need to accept. We might not always understand how God can grant peace in times of high anxiety or turmoil. But that's the promise that he gives us, along with that ultimate promise of peace with him when he takes us to heaven. Lord, grant us faith to receive your peace. Yes, our lives are filled with reasons to worry, reasons to be anxious, and they will be to the end of our earthly lives. Nevertheless, our gracious God, in his loving kindness, gives us a way out of that crippling anxiety. His invitation to prayer reminds us that he will always be close by, at hand, and active in our lives. And his invitation to enjoy his peace reminds us of his overwhelming love, both now and forever. In his name, amen.